The waves lap against the rotting wood of Port Royal's dock. It's 1721, and a man's body swings from a gibbet iron cage creaking in the salty wind. His name was John Rackham Calico Jack to those who feared him. His crime? Piracy? His punishment? A death so slow, so public, that the gulls still circle his bones, picking at what's left. The crowd doesn't cheer. They stare, silent, as the Caribbean sun bleaches his corpse white. This is no isolated cruelty. This is justice in the lawless sea, a justice that carves its truth into flesh, bone, and memory. What kind of world breeds such terror? And why does it still haunt us? The Caribbean of the 17th and 18th centuries was a crucible of chaos, a place where empires clashed. Pirates thrived, and justice was a blade wielded by the desperate and the damned. The golden age of piracy wasn't just a romantic tale of swashbucklers and treasure. It was a brutal theater of torture, execution, and psychological warfare, where colonial powers and outlaws alike used pain to enforce order or defy it. This script explores the dark heart of pirate justice, how it was inflicted, endured, and mythologized. From the floggings and keelhauls of pirate crews to the public spectacles of colonial punishment, we'll uncover truth. In the lawless Caribbean, justice was not about morality. It was about power, fear, and survival. And its echoes linger in the stories we tell. The Caribbean in the late 17th and early 18th centuries was a frontier of empire and anarchy. Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands vied for control of its islands and trade routes, their galleons heavy with gold, sugar, and slaves. But the seas belonged to no one. Pirates, men and women like Edward Teach, Anne Bonny, and Bartholomew Roberts exploited this chaos, raiding ships and defying crowns. They were not mere thieves. They were rebels against a system that offered no mercy to the poor, the displaced, or the defiant. Colonial authorities responded with ferocity. Piracy threatened their wealth and legitimacy, so they crafted punishments designed to terrify. Hanging was too kind. Gibbeting, locking a living or dead body in an iron cage to rot publicly was common. So were floggings, brandings, and executions that drew crowds as both warning and entertainment. Yet pirates, too, had their own codes of justice. Their ships were floating societies governed by strict rules and brutal penalties. Disobedience meant marooning, flogging, or worse. In this world, everyone, pirate or governor, was complicit in the cycle of violence. Pirate ships were not lawless. They operated under articles, contracts signed by every crew member. These codes dictated everything from loot division to punishment for betrayal. Captain Charles Johnson's A General, History of the Pirates, records the articles of Bartholomew Roberts. Crew. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment. Flogging was the most common punishment. A pirate's cat o' nine tails, a whip with multiple knotted cords, could tear skin to ribbons. Blackbeard, notorious for his theatrical cruelty, once forced a disobedient sailor to endure 50 lashes, each one a lesson in loyalty. Yet these punishments weren't just about pain. They were rituals of control, binding crews through fear and shared suffering. Colonial authorities matched cruelty with spectacle. In 1701, Captain William Kidd, once a respected privateer, was hanged in London's execution dock. His body was gibbeted over the Thames for 3 years, a warning to sailors. In the Caribbean, Port Royal became the epicenter of such displays. After the 1692 earthquake, both pirates and colonial powers understood fear's power. Pirates cultivated it through terror tactics. Blackbeard braided lit fuses into his beard, creating a demonic aura. Colonial governors used public executions to assert dominance. But this cycle of terror took a toll. Sailors lived in constant dread of capture or betrayal. Crowds at executions weren't just entertained. They were traumatized, forced to confront their own mortality. As historian Marcus Rediker notes in Villains of All Nations, The spectacle of the gallows was meant to discipline the living as much as destroy the condemned. Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard, was the Caribbean's boogeyman. His flagship, Queen Anne's Revenge, terrorized the Atlantic. From 1716 to 1718, his crew's discipline was ruthless. A sailor who stole rum was tied to the mast and flogged until he fainted. Another, suspected of plotting mutiny, was forced to run the gauntlet, passing through a corridor of crewmen who beat him with ropes. Blackbeard's own death in 1718 was no less brutal. Cornered by British naval officer Robert Maynard, he was shot 5 times, stabbed 20, and beheaded. His head was mounted on Maynard's ship as a trophy. John Rackham, or Calico Jack, was a smaller figure but no less defiant. With his lover Anne Bonny and fellow pirate Mary Read, he raided merchant ships in 1720. Captured off Jamaica, Rackham was hanged and gibbeted. Bonny and Read, both pregnant, escaped the noose but vanished into history's shadows. Bonny's last words to Rackham, recorded by Johnson, were chilling. "Had you fought like a man, you need not have been hanged like a dog." Port Royal's executions were a grim theater. In 1721, 52 pirates were hanged in a single month. Their bodies, caged in iron, lined the harbor like grotesque lanterns. Governor Nicholas Lawless wrote, "The sight of them deters others from like villainy." But did it? Piracy persisted, fueled by desperation and defiance. Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates remains a key source, though its mix of fact and myth demands caution. He describes Blackbeard's flogging rituals. The offender was lashed until the blood ran free, a warning to all. Colonial records, like those of Jamaica's Governor Lawless, detail executions with clinical precision. The prisoner was hung by the neck until dead, then placed in a gibbet for public view. Modern historians like Redeker and Peter Linnebaugh emphasize the social context, pirates as rebels against an oppressive system, punished with disproportionate cruelty to maintain order. The Caribbean's justice was a mirror of its time. Pirates, often former sailors or slaves, rejected a world that offered them nothing but toil or chains. Their codes, while brutal, were democratic, giving every man a vote, a radical contrast to colonial hierarchies. Yet their violence mirrored the empires they opposed. Both sides used torture, not just to punish, but to communicate. A gibbeted body wasn't just a corpse. It was a story, a warning, a claim to power. Psychologically, this constant exposure to violence desensitized and traumatized. Sailors who witnessed keelhauls or floggings carried those images into their dreams. Crowds at executions were complicit, their silence a form of consent. Anthropologically, these rituals were akin to ancient sacrifices, public acts to appease the gods of order or chaos. The Caribbean was a liminal space where civilization and savagery blurred, and justice became a performance of survival. What is justice in a world without mercy? The Caribbean's tortures and executions weren't about right or wrong. They were about control over seas, over men, over fear itself. Pirates and governors alike wielded pain as a language, speaking to each other in screams and blood. Yet the question lingers. Did this violence achieve anything? Piracy waned by the 1730s, but not because of